Kane Finny committed to Notre Dame last night. We're going to take a look here. Aledo, Texas, 6 foot, 200. As always, you guys let me know what you think about this kid. Anybody else in this 2026 class you want me to watch? Trying to get ahead of the curve on 2027. Not really going to watch any sophomore tapes, but feel free to recommend anybody. So 6 foot, 200. I absolutely love the frame. And if you watch some of my other videos, that won't really line up with what I say, because I usually say something like I'm looking for receivers 6'2 plus, where we're talking about liking the frame. For what this kid is, he's built like a running back, and that's not to diminish what he does as a receiver, because I think he's actually a really good route runner. And we'll let the tape roll a little bit, and it won't be till later in the film till we see like real receiver type highlights. But this kid's built like a running back, and that's something I really like to see. Really developed lower body. His dad played tight end in the NFL. You can kind of see the NFL genes show up physically. Very, very developed rack skills already for a junior in high school. And you'll see that come up again and again. And sometimes when you hear me say that, that's kind of a euphemism for they're probably a bit more of a gadget type player, but you'll start seeing some actual receiver stuff show up. And I always love the hustle highlights. This is one of the more fun highlight tapes I've watched all year, to be honest, just because there's so many dimensions that show up, and I love seeing the blocking. But yeah, you'll see some of this stuff show up. He's going to contribute like this for sure at Notre Dame. Some of these more, not necessarily trick plays, but end arounds, getting this kid the ball in his hands early. You'll see that for sure. That's something he's going to bring to the table. But I also like this kid's upside as an actual receiver. Maybe as a slot receiver, as a separator. There's going to be some talk about his top end being a bit limited, and you see that show up in the film. I think he ran something like an 11.54 100 meter, which is not a good time. I'm just going to say it frankly. 11.54 is pretty slow. I don't think he's that slow. I think I think that's more of something of him not running a good track time. So am I worried about the top end? No, I just think it's something worth considering. You're not going to really ask this kid to stretch the field consistently, and to be honest, that's something that Notre Dame already has on their roster with some of the younger prospects. I don't think they have a guy on the roster with the skill set that Finley has when we're talking about him breaking tackles, him being a rack guy. So, like I said, I think I kind of alluded to this before. When I say, he's a rack guy, really good with the ball in his hands, a lot of times you don't see these kids aren't always good route runners. They're not always developed football players. But as this tape matures, you'll start seeing that stuff show up a little bit. This doesn't look like 11.54 to me. This looks faster. So that's why I'm not really going to take that much stock in the 100 meter time. Point I was trying to make. You see a lot of nuance route running. You see a lot of strong hands away from the body. A lot of developed receiver stuff. Look at this route. Look at this. He's so explosive. If we had a 10-second split time, I think it'd be a lot. It wouldn't line up with what his 40-yard dash time is, because I think would be in the top end of 10-yard splits, explosiveness. Really like this kid's release. After the release, really good route runner. Very sudden. It shows up with the ball in his hands, and then you'll start seeing it on this tape show up as a route runner. So very high upside, I think. Not really just a one-trick pony when we're talking about the actual ball in the hands type stuff. Like that's kind of like what Malachi Corley is. What he was at Western Kentucky, him getting into the NFL was more how is he as a route runner. And it's different NFL. I'm not going to talk about that anymore, but this is what I'm talking about. You just start seeing this receiver stuff show up, because at the beginning of the tape, I was like, Notre Dame might want to think about moving this kid to running back, but I think he's too good of a receiver to actually take him away from that position. But I don't think he's a gadget player in that, like, we'll watch some, like Tredarian Ball we'll watch and say he's going to get some meaningful snaps at running back and receiver. I don't think we'll really think about that with Finley here. I think he's just a receiver with a really good rack ability, and we'll just leave it at that, I think. We'll start getting into some of the more receiver stuff here. Really like this kid's hands, really strong hands. Again, it's a highlight tape. You won't see the drops show up. So even if there was, we wouldn't know. But a lot of high school football players, a lot of athletes, they have some trouble with letting the ball get to their body, and you can see they're kind of a body catcher. Not the case with this kid. Really strong hands away from the body. Really gets after it, run blocking also. I absolutely love this kind of stuff. You know, that's weight room stuff. That's the 6', 200 showing up. That's the running back frame stuff. So you see that again and again on this tape. And take a look at the burst of explosiveness here. This is what we're talking about when we talk about explosiveness. Pretty developed route. Hasn't really got on his horse yet. These two kids probably have him not dead to rights, but certainly have a chance at him. And then he just puts it into another gear. So would I be bringing up the 40-yard, the 100-meter concerns if I didn't know the 100-meter time? Like, would I be talking about the long speed as an issue? I think that's, when I say that, I just don't think he's going to be a field stretcher at the next level. That's just not his skill set. So I think he brings a pretty rare level of, you know, rack ability and pretty unique frame also. I think you'll watch a lot of receivers in this class, and you'll probably see more kids that are 6'4" plus than the kids with that, like, stocky receiver builds, and still while managing to be athletic. So I really like what Finley brings to the Notre Dame receiver room. Like I said before, you look at who they have already on the roster, all very great. You know, I'm so high on these kids that I wanted to bring them up at some point in this video, but I'm going to actually say their names here. Elijah Burris, absolutely love. Great route runner, great separator, not really a rack guy. Cam Williams, more of a field stretcher at 6, but also very physical presence at 6'5". Absolutely love what Cam Williams brings to the field. I don't think any of the younger guys, Scrap Richardson, Micah Gilbert, Logan Salday, didn't watch all of them, but Micah Gilbert's maybe a bit closer to what Kaydon Finley brings, but I think it's just completely different. So I kind of like that it diversifies what they have in the room so far. Haven't really watched their whole 26 class like commit list yet, so I don't know who else, what other receivers in this class, but good tight end already committed. Anyways, if you kind of want like a precursor, I do think Malachi Corley's kind of a good comparison. I don't really do that very often, but skill sets, if you want to watch like the way he was employed in 2025, you know, that's or when he was still at Western Kentucky, go watch his Western Kentucky highlights. I think that's kind of a similar type athlete, similar type frame, and looking at the numbers, they're probably pretty close. Corley's maybe like an inch shorter, but probably more weight, but I think Finley's playing weight's a bit higher than 200, to be honest. I think this kid is already very strong, already very physically developed, but, you know, you just walk onto campus, you put on 10, 15 pounds. So I think it's going to be very exciting to see what he does with actually 10 more pounds. Already a very good route runner. Very high on this kid. Like him a whole lot. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.